Hello everyone and welcome to Quality Old Games. Today we are having a new tier list, a unit roster, namely that of Greek units, and in campaign setting especially. And we are going to start with cavalry units, which there are 4, and actually 2 of them have similar images, but the first one is the early cavalry general. And I think since it comes free, it's pretty decent unit. It's not as good as that of the Roman general unit, but it's pretty decent. It's among the best cavalry the Greek cities have in the game. Then we have the later version of the general's bodyguard, the armored bodyguard unit, and it's superior to this early version in every way. It's stronger, fights better, and so on. So it's in good tier, maybe A tier. And then we have the Greek light cavalry. It's pretty decent chasing down enemy units. It's the best cavalry you can make as Greek cities, but it doesn't survive against any other decent cavalry unit unless it has numerical superiority. So that's why it goes into decent category, but only because the Greek cities cannot produce us buying anything better. And finally we have the militia cavalry. They are spear throwing cavalry. Every unit has several spears, and after that they are only useful in chasing down fleeing enemy units. So they are not very good. Of course, they can lure away some enemy units if you play them wisely, and they can even cause some damage, but the amount of missiles they have limits their use, so I will place them in not good category. Then we move into infantry, and among the first here we have the first champion or S tier unit, namely armored hoplites. They are among the best infantry units in the whole game. Their phalanxes in defensive battles are almost impregnable, especially if the enemy hasn't more than 2 times the numbers to attack. They may not survive in one-on-one against urban cohorts or Praetorian cohorts, but they can handle almost anything. And they only take 1 turn to produce. They require only tier 3 barracks to construct. So in the similar level of Roman principes. And since Greek cities have pretty decent starting cities, they are very easy to get. So they are absolutely champion tier here. Then we have a bit lower quality hoplites, the hoplites themselves. They require only tier 2 barracks to construct. That's a big plus going for them. Their phalanxes are pretty decent, not superior, but they will hold the line, especially in defensive battles, most of the cases. So that will put them into A tier or in good tier. And then we have militia hoplites. They are not as good as the hoplites in fight, but they require only tier 1 barracks to construct, which is a huge thing going for them. And they work okay in defensive battles, but they are not as good as the armored hoplites. You cannot base an offensive on militia hoplites, but defending cities they are pretty cheap, and you can moderately rely on them. So I think they will be a bit better than the hoplites because of the ease with which you can get them, and compared that to their abilities, which are pretty decent. So maybe strong, good tier. Then we have Greek cities peasants. They are trash in fight, but they are very cheap to make. They have many men in the unit, and because of that, when you produce them, you improve the public order already when they are in the production queue, and when they are finished, they furthermore improve the public order. You shouldn't use them in fights, especially in tight or only in tight spots in cities, city defenses, but because of that ability to boost public order, which will be kind of very relevant in late game, I will put them into champions tier. Not because of their fighting abilities, but because of their utility in the campaign setting. And as the final infantry unit, we have Spartan hoplites. In fight, they easily outperform armored hoplites. On the downside, they require tier 4 barracks to build. And there may be some other special requirements. So I usually use them quite little, and they are quite expensive as well. In most of the cases, armored hoplites can deal with the enemy, so Spartan hoplites won't be needed. And based on fighting abilities, these would be champions, absolutely. But because they are quite difficult to get, they take long time to train, and they are expensive, I'm wondering whether they are good or decent. And I think they are decent because of the cost and difficulty to get. I think in multiplayer battle they would be ranked higher. And then we can move on to missile units. First we have archers. And it's really good that the Greek cities have archers, because their missile unit roster is pretty thin. And overall, archers are among the best missile units. I think they are good ones. They require tier 2 archery building to get, so not that difficult if you compare them to, for example, Roman archers, which are much more difficult to get, at least in my opinion. And then we have heavy peltasts. They are among the best javelin units in the game. Actually, they are the best javelin unit in the game because of the shield, and they are pretty decent in melee as well. They can hold their own in one-on-one against the weakest enemy infantry. So, and they are pretty decent in flanking maneuvers if phalanxes are holding the enemy in place. So because of this, I will put these into good tier as well. And then we have the weakest missile unit, peltasts. They have kind of similar weaponry compared to the heavy peltasts, but they are only very lightly armored. They cannot hold against any kind of enemy infantry, and since they don't have many missiles, usually they become useless pretty early on in the battle. In a battle, I would most definitely have a militia hoplite unit instead of peltasts. So, and these require at least tier 2 city to build, even though the archery building required is tier 1. But you can get those militia hoplites more easily. And because of that, I think these are either not good or trash, but let's put them rather weak, not good category. And then we are moving to siege units. I don't use siege units very much because they slow down the army. And the Greek cities have ballistas, as does Romans and some other factions as well. I think ballistas work decently against armored heavy enemy units. But if you want them to take a slot, for example, from archers or from hoplites, I don't think that's wise. So ballistas 2 are going to not good category, but they are better than the peltasts. So not good category. They also require quite high level archery building to get. Then we have heavy onagers. Against other hoplites using factions, they are pretty decent. Because if one can hit a flaming ammunition really well against the enemy, it will cause some decent damage. But once again, I would rather take hoplite unit over this heavy onager. It takes 2 turns to construct, it's quite expensive, and it slows down the campaign map movement. So because of this expensiveness, I think this unit, it's a bit better than the ballista, but I don't usually get these. Maybe in multiplayer battles, but not in campaign setting. And the same applies to the onagers as well, but these only take 1 turn to construct, and the requirements are a bit lower for them. So because of that, they get poor decent tier rating, whereas the heavy onager gets not good rating. And finally we have 1 unit left, namely the incendiary pigs, and they have the similar fate as in the Roman unit tier list. Their only purpose is against elephants, and I'm not sure if they perform that well against those either. And besides, it's not nice to flame pigs in battle, so that's why they get trashed here. So this is my opinion. You are free to disagree. For example, in comments, what are, in your opinion, the best units in Greek cities unit roster in campaign setting? You are free to express your opinion in the comment field, and I think we will make other tier list pretty soon about mercenaries. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. That will help a great deal. Have a great rest of the day. Quality Old Games out.